Hey, y'all. Welcome to Cross Politic. Before we go live, we got some fun content we want to bring to you from our club portal. And we do this because we want to encourage you, the daily listener, or listeners in our audience, to actually join our club. You can go to fightlaughfeast.com to join our club. We have thousands of supporters who've joined our club. We really do need hundreds of thousands of supporters. Fox News and other networks like that, they bring in $13-14 billion a year. And if we are going to compete with them, we need hundreds of thousands of club members to get us there. So please consider joining our club. And with your club membership, you get discounts to our conference, our Fight Laugh Feast, our annual Fight Laugh Feast conference. You get merch, Cross Politic merch. You get access. We're actually building out some communication channels so we'll be able to network with other club members and so forth. So we really encourage you to join our club. You know, give us those 5 stones that David had to take down Goliath, because our desire really is to take down mainstream media. So enjoy this club content before our show starts. Our show is going to start here in about 5 to 8 minutes. So stick around, and we look forward to live streaming with you today.
Wisdom's speech that the Father records here in Proverbs 1 is actually carefully structured to highlight the direness of the warning. There's actually 3 discrete sections of her speech. And it's, first of all, the crying aloud in the streets. You see this in verses 20 through 23. Then there's the recording of the rejection. You've rejected me when I called. And you see this from 24 to 27. And then finally, it's a description of how wisdom thinks and responds to that rejection. She says that they will call and she will not answer them anymore. Verses 28 through 33. You can actually see movement in the pronouns through this section. At the beginning, the warning is in the second person, you. She's talking to the Son and to all those who will listen, you. And then after the rejection, the pronoun turns to they. She's not even talking to them anymore. The speech, she's just talking about them. She's turned away. They are trying to cry out to her, but she says, it's too late. You didn't listen. You had your chance. And so she only talks about them now. She's no longer talking to them. After the warning has been rejected, wisdom, the last thing she does directly at them, it says that she laughs at you for your rejection. And then in their folly, it's all they. So she laughs and turns, and she doesn't talk to them anymore. The setting for wisdom's sermon indicates several things. First, again, we see the public nature of wisdom again. Remember this in chapter 1, at the beginning of chapter 1, we talked about the fact that Proverbs are for kings. This is wisdom for kings, and this wisdom for kings is wisdom for ruling. It's wisdom for public life. A king is not just doesn't need to understand deep things just inside him. The king needs to understand the nature of the world and the deep things of God so that he can rule wisely, so that he can rule his kingdom well. He needs to know about economics and trade and immigration and warfare and how to deal with people and the complexities of the way people are, the complexities of a kingdom life. And so wisdom is a public venture, and wisdom is out in public. She's out there in the public square calling. We also see and remember that wisdom is learned in community. It's learned in a public setting. So it's for public affairs, and it's learned and gathered there in public with other people. It's a community deal. And so remember back in chapter 1, we saw that wisdom was for the simple. It was for the young men. It was for wise men. It was for those who have attained men of understanding. So it's found in the community of wisdom. We said that this is particularly seen in the Christian church. This is the center of God's wisdom, where the word is proclaimed, where we sit down at a table together and worship, where we hear the word, where we apply the word, where we sharpen one another, where we promise to be a community to one another. We build one another up. We disciple one another. We hold one another accountable. We are the body of Christ, and we need one another. This is the community of wisdom. And so this is why wisdom is a public venture, and it's learned in a public setting.
Legacy media is falling apart, and as it crumbles, a void is opening, a void that we intend to fill. The big legacy news networks currently average just 1.2 million viewers a weeknight, and those numbers are only going to get lower. Legacy media is dying, and the younger generation has moved on. Legacy media panders. Legacy media lies. Legacy media does not know what the truth is, and they don't care about it. Legacy media is a dumpster fire. This is why we few in our wild imaginations have started the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Our goal is to take down the legacy media giant of the last 50 years with our 5 stones. We started in 2016 with our flagship show, Cross Politics. Since those small beginnings, we now air on DirecTV. Our broader podcast network now gets over 4 million downloads a year. And our Fight Laugh Feast pub, which includes TV shows like This America, The Rowdy Christian's Guide, Pastors in Politics, and As the Lord Pleases, with your support, many more to come. Our goal is to become the flagship new media 2.0 network over the next 50 years and take over nightly news, sports, sitcoms, hunting shows, and more, all conveniently stored for you in our Fight Laugh Feast pub. We're already reaching the next generation through our podcast shows on YouTube, X, and our pub, while also tapping into legacy media audiences by airing our shows on TV through DirecTV and Xfinity. We have made a lot of progress with some duct tape and a good bit of intuition and a lot of sweat. And now we need your support more than ever. The TV networks have had such a negative impact on our households, and we're trying, by the grace of God, to put a stop to that. We have the opportunity. We just need the army. Now more than ever, we need you to join our pub to help us reach our goal of 1 million pub supporters in the next 5 years. There's no way around it. Competing with Fox and the Alphabet networks without money is virtually impossible. It's cheap for you to join. And when you do, you're combining your small monthly support with a growing army of like-minded Christians. We have thousands. We need millions. So if you want more of the Alphabet network's misinformation and lies, don't join. But if you want to give us a mere 5 stones, then please join the pub, and together we will take a swing at the head of big media, all the while fighting, laughing, and feasting to the glory of God. We're trying to confuse you.
Hey, is my mic even on?
It is. It should be. Let me make sure it's a little higher.
You got to turn down the music.
Is that one?
There we go. Then if you turn down the music, you can hear yourself a little better. Because
this is, I don't know, opposite day?
Your mic is too loud. Can you turn your mic down?
Okay, that one. Is that one better?
Thank you. Woo.
Oh, man, I got to crank yours up a little more.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, y'all. Welcome to Cross Politics on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. As you can see, we got no Pastor Toby here. Knox was barely able to make it.
Everything's falling apart.
He ended up in my seat. I'm in his seat, and because I got to read the ads and all the things we had to change over. So we also have a couple great guests coming on here in a minute from Kentucky. This show's actually really kind of focused on conversion therapy happening in Kentucky. We got a legislator coming on. Of course,
it's not happening in Kentucky. They're trying to make sure it doesn't happen in Kentucky. That's what's going on.
And wait until you get to hear the definition of what they're saying conversion therapy is. I got it. I got it right here. So thank you for joining us on that. Do you find yourself turning on the news and feeling hopeless? Woke agendas, open borders, inflation, the list goes on. There's something you can do. Buy from companies that believe what you believe, and I believe. We need to stick together now more than ever. And there has been one company willing to stand with you since 2012, and that's Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They offer the very best nationwide 4G and 5G coverage on all the networks. In fact, they use the same towers as the major carriers, and they got LTE. I don't know why they just say 4G and 5G. They actually have LTE because I have Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile has service plans to fit any budget, and their 100% U.S.-based customer support team provides exceptional customer service support. And I text my customer service. That's what I get to do. I can't do that with AT&T. I can't do that. I text my customer service, and I love that about Patriot Mobile. So more importantly, Patriot Mobile shares your values and support organizations fighting for religious freedom, your constitutional rights, and sanctity of life, and our veteran and first responder heroes. So they support all that. Okay, unlike Kamala, who actually funds against it, defunds them, and also funds BLM against them. Switch to Patriot Mobile now and get free activation with the code offer CrossPolitic. That, put in CrossPolitic. Go to patriotmobile.com/CrossPolitic. Or if you're just talking to one of the reps, just mention CrossPolitic sent you, and they'll take really good care of you. So I really like Patriot Mobile. Also, Patriot Mobile's sponsoring our corporate partner dinner event on Wednesday night in Fort Worth at Prodigal America Conference. So if you aren't a corporate partner and you're interested in learning about what our corporate partnership should look like with CrossPolitic and the Fight Laugh Feast Network, email me waterboy@crosspolitic.com, and I can potentially invite you to the corporate partner dinner if we have room available and you aren't a corporate partner. But it's a great time. Patriot Mobile sponsoring that corporate partner dinner on Wednesday the 30th. That's just the day before our conference starts. Go to prodigalamerica.com to sign up for that too, or email me about the corporate partner event separately. So I'm going to bring in our guest here in a second, so hang on, guys. Kentucky's governor, Andy Beshear, he just signed a bill banning conversion therapy in Texas. Now, this is not
Texas?
that in Kentucky. Oh my gosh. Why did I say Texas? Why did I say Texas?
Yeah.
The audience is laughing. Now, actually, 23. This is not new, but but this is important because more states are catering to this. There's actually 23 states. Bring up the map right now. There's 23 states right now that have some sort of version of conversion therapy, ban of some sort of ban of conversion therapy.
How many did you say?
23.
Oof.
Plus DC, Washington, D.C. And in some of these states, you can see the green and the brown, or the red states don't have anything. So like Idaho doesn't have anything.
Texas has something
because those are local bans. So some sort of local ban on it in the liberal cities of Austin, Texas, stuff like that. So the green states, keep that map up there. The green states are the states that have a statewide ban, which includes New Mexico, Colorado. You can see some of the most liberal states, and then the brown states have some sort of local ban in some sort of version in place. So that's the lay of the land. Of course, Kentucky is not on that map yet, but that map will be updated after this week. So Governor Beshear signed an executive order, wielding the pen for this. And so I'm going to read a little bit. I'm actually going to read through parts of the conversion therapy, and then I'll introduce our guests and bring them in.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Commonwealth of Kentucky cannot. This is the preamble, basically, to their executive order, to Governor Beshear's executive order.
Yeah.
The Commonwealth of Kentucky cannot reach its full potential until and unless it is free from discrimination by or against any citizens. Team Kentucky, listen to that. Team
Abortion
Kentucky
is then illegal in Kentucky.
Yeah, exactly, right? You'd think so, right? Team Kentucky must exhibit the diversity and resilience of the people of the Commonwealth. Discrimination against our LGBT brothers, LGBTQ plus brothers and sisters, including our LGBTQ plus youth, is unacceptable in the Commonwealth.
Discrimination. I wonder how they define that.
Yeah, right. I'm sure they have some sort of legal definition. But the Cabinet for Health and Family Services is thus required to deliver social services to promote the safety and security of Kentuckians and their dignity. So note, it's the Cabinet for Health and Family Services. That sounds like a family organization, doesn't it? It sounds like a family role, and they're doing it, and the government's doing it. I'm going to skip down here. Conversion therapy rests on the premise that an LGBT plus individual's identity is pathological and can be repaired or fixed. This is a false premise, has no basis in medicine or science. So conversion therapy rests on this premise. So they define what conversion therapy is. They say it rests on this premise that an individual or their pathological, identity can be repaired or fixed. So that's the premise that they're fighting against. It also says, according to such organizations as the American Medical Association, the AMA. Wasn't the AMA requiring you to wear a mask? Wasn't the AMA requiring you to stand 6 feet apart? According to such organizations as the AMA, the American College of Physicians and American Psychiatric Association, those organizations, the dangers practiced by conversion therapy can cause significant long-term harm to LGBTQ youth. So the AMA and the American Physicians and Psychiatric Association are, I can't believe he referenced them. What a joke. What a freaking joke. So now on to the executive order. There's a lot to read. I'm skipping around a lot, but I wanted to kind of give you guys the meat of what's going on before we bring our guest on.
Can we put the link to this in our notes so people can find it in the chat? We can just drop a link inside the chat that people can find it. If you guys want to follow along and read as we're going through the show, you can also.
Bank might be able to find that, or someone might be able to find that. Yeah, because it's actually I'm reading the executive order now. So that was the preamble. Now this is the executive order. So now, therefore, I, Andy Beshear, Governor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Kentucky Constitution. Do I need to turn my mic down still?
You want that? Yeah.
So that's the
got it.
Vested in me, blah, blah, blah. I declare, order, and direct the following. So here's what the executive order directs. Number 1, the Cabinet for Health and Family Services shall take all actions necessary to prohibit the direct or indirect use of state and federal funds for practice of conversion therapy on minors, referring a minor for conversion therapy, extending health benefits coverage for conversion therapy with a minor, and so on. So that's kind of, saying, hey, the state can't put funds towards this. Secondly, any agency that discovers or receives a report that a provider certified or licensed to practice in Kentucky engages in conversion therapy efforts with a person under 18 years of age, or performs counseling on conversion therapy as part of his training for any professional licensed under a professional certification or licensing board within the Commonwealth of Kentucky shall report that providers to the appropriate professional certification or licensing board with the Commonwealth for potential disciplinary actions.
If you see something,
say something.
Say something.
And this is why, we really got to fix what it means to be a free state. Like the licensing side of what the state licensed you to work. The state says you can go to work now because you got certain, licensing capabilities. Like that needs to go to hell, because now they're turning that licensing into limiting your freedoms. Okay. I'm going to kind of, skip down here because I'm trying to just get to the meat of everything that's going on here. All professional certifications. So this is the executive order. Sorry. Yeah. All professional certifications or licensing boards, departments, and autonomous agencies within the Commonwealth of Kentucky that are not subject to the supervision of the governor are encouraged to explore and implement all options to prohibit the practice of conversion therapy. So he's now trying to say, hey, anyone that's not under my jurisdiction, under the government, you should do what I'm saying here. You should put into place what I'm saying here. And of course, now lastly, the definition. Here's how they're defining conversion therapy. Conversion therapy means any practice, treatment, or intervention that seeks or purports to change an individual's sexual orientation or gender identity, including efforts to change behaviors or gender expressions, or to eliminate or reduce sexual or romantic attractions or feelings toward individuals of the same gender. So that's the definition. That includes conversion. Now, here's what's crazy. So they they defined it, and then they said this does not include conversion therapy. Definition does not include this. So now he's saying this is what's protected. This is what is not included. Any practice, treatment, or intervention that provides acceptance, support, or understanding to an individual.
I accept and support that they need to be changing. How about that?
Any practice, treatment, or intervention that is neutral. Who defines neutral?
They do.
Any practice, treatment, or intervention that assists the individual seeking to undergo gender transition, and so forth. So it gives a definition, and it says what it protects. Last thing here, I want to run a clip from what Andy Beshear has said about conversion therapy in this executive order he signed, and then I'll bring in our guest.
We cannot sit back and do nothing while our kids are hurting that badly, while we are losing some of our kids that could still be walking this earth. At least 23 states and the District of Columbia have taken action to restrict the use of conversion therapy with minors in some way. Some of these states have acted through executive order, but many of them have passed bipartisan legislation where both Democrats and Republicans voted to prohibit the harmful practice of conversion therapy. It's hard to be a kid right now. It is a tough world with social media, with all the pressures that are out there. Our children face more difficulty than most of us could have imagined when we were kids. This is not about red or blue. It is not about politics at all. And to me, it's not even about gender or sexuality.
What?
It's about protecting our youth from an inhumane practice that hurts them. As you know, I've advocated along the Fairness Campaign, the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights, and Lexington Fairness in support of legislation for years, and I will continue to push it. I still hope that we can get legislation passed by our General Assembly on this topic.
Wow.
But I'm not going to wait any longer. That's why today I'm proud to stand with all of you to sign an executive order officially banning the practice of conversion therapy on minors in the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
That's quite the amazing press conference there. I'd like to bring in our guest, Tim Tysoe. If you guys have downloaded our app and followed our network and other shows on our network, Tim Tysoe is the co-founder of Liberty Dispatch. He's a lay elder at Royal Spring Chapel and an editor for ChristianWeek.org. He recently moved to Central Kentucky to work in construction and renovation. And if you remember Tim, our brother Tim, actually, I originally met him in Canada when a lot of this stuff was going down in Canada. Hey, Tim, thank you for joining us on Cross Politic Brothers. It's been a while. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. And then I'd like to bring on Josh Calloway, is an American politician who has served as Republican member of the Kentucky House of Representatives since January 2021. And he got involved after COVID. He represents Kentucky's 11th House District, which includes Breckenridge and Hardin counties. Josh, thank you for so much for joining us on Cross Politic.
Thank you, guys. Thank y'all for having me.
So, Josh, I'm going to start off with the legislative side of this with you. This is an executive order, so kind of governor by pen, and it's a very atrocious executive order. How are you processing this? I mean, you guys aren't even in session, are you?
No, sir.
What a smart time to do it.
Yeah,
no,
well, I think
it's par for the course for this governor. But I will tell you that this is one of the most egregious things that he has done as governor. I got the notification that he was going to be signing this about 5:30 on Tuesday evening. And I don't know that I slept at all Tuesday night at all. I wasn't scheduled or planning to be in Frankfort on Wednesday morning, but was compelled, prayed throughout the night, reached out to many pastors and some friends I know that pray, and just felt compelled to be there for the press conference and at least have the opportunity to speak the truth, because I knew so much falsehood and so many lies were going to be told. And so there's two aspects to this: the egregious nature of what this involves, and then the fact that this guy thinks he's a legislator.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
that's right. So that was the thing that struck me. It's obviously very political what he's doing. He's obviously doing this when legislative session's not even close to being in session yet. And so there's that side of it. How do you guys as a legislator body hold the governor accountable when you aren't in session?
Well, there's a few things that I think are we can do right now. One thing is that our attorney general is looking at this, so trying to determine, because we believe that he broke the law and he has violated the Constitution. And so they're looking at that. That's one aspect, and we have all been talking to their office to see what options there are. The other is to encourage a citizen to file a lawsuit against him, and we're moving forward with that. We have somebody that's willing to represent them, and so we're trying to get that moving forward. And then we have to call him out. We just have to speak the truth let people know what he's doing. People had no idea this was coming down except for basically the fairness campaign. And so nobody had seen the executive order. It was by design. So when we were there talking to the press, all we could talk about is what we thought it was about and the nature of what he was doing, but we had no specifics that we could deal with because nobody had seen it.
So part of the play here is, Kentucky governor signs an executive order.
Yeah.
It becomes live. The bureaucracies start obeying it. And then it's live for 6 months until legislative session starts happening in January, February. And so it's already enacted. Now, if you guys repeal it, his executive order, now you hate kids. You're putting kids at risk. I mean, that's the rhetoric. That's the narrative of what's going to happen.
Yes. And we have to control that narrative by speaking the truth and using the platforms that we have to get the truth out there. I did have 13 legislators we were able to pull together really quick and put out a statement just condemning what he has done from a constitutional standpoint, and then the fact of what this actually does to kids. But this when I say it's par for the course, go back a few years when his dad was governor, and I was working here in the state of Kentucky as a volunteer in the Warren County Juvenile Detention Center, doing church services, doing counseling one-on-one with the children there. And his dad was the governor at the time. We walk in one night and they hand us new volunteer paperwork. And so I get this paperwork and we start going through it. A friend of mine who was heading up this ministry, and the paperwork said that we could not read portions of scripture that stated that LGBTQ AI plus was sin, and that we could not say or imply that anyone that was LGBTQ AI plus could or should change. So that's where this goes. That's where this type of overreach ends up at.
I'm a little, I'm glad you went back a few years because I'm trying to figure out the whole narrative. How I thought Kentucky was conservative. I don't know why. Just thinking of Kentucky, I just naturally thought there's.
I think tobacco and rednecks,
you got bourbon and everything.
Bourbon.
It's in the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
Like, why, how does a guy like
this in the Bible Bourbon Belt?
Yes. Baptists don't talk about it. How does a guy like this get elected?
I can sum it up in 2 words for you. You ready?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Louisville, Lexington.
Okay.
And that's where a lot of this comes from. That's where it's driven from. And I think there's a lot of people in Kentucky. We have a supermajority in the House, a supermajority in the Senate. During COVID, this guy was on TV every day. He was the nice guy that wanted everybody to be friends and buddies and rely on each other and snitch on your neighbor if you caught him without a mask and all that good stuff. And so he comes across as this passive, compassionate type person. He is not that person at all. Behind the scenes, he is. Well, if you just go back and look when he was Attorney General and all the people that he sued and the things that he sued on, and it tells you a lot about his character. But I think people were deceived to some degree as to what he was. Now he's not running again. He's in his final term. The mask is off. He's at the DNC just preaching the death cult. And then here we see, and this is going to continue happening. We're going to have to rein him in.
I remember going back to 2000, the early 2000s, and I remember the fight about conversion therapy. There was a little fight in the camp about what conversion therapy. It's actually not even a title I think most people cared about in the reform world, because we don't do conversion therapy. We just preach the gospel to people. That wasn't our title.
We do conversion therapy.
Right. Well, sure. But that wasn't, and we just kind of didn't get involved in that battle and let those guys kind of get hit.
Yeah.
But the way that they're talking about conversion therapy now, it is a huge tent that allows everybody who's a Christian that believes the gospel can actually transform a human being
and change someone.
It puts them now in the crosshairs of this law. So Josh, I'm just wondering, when we talk about, can we just define a little bit the differences in conversion therapy and the process? And does it even matter anymore, I even think, to have this conversation?
I think it does matter a little bit. There were people that were up at the press conference who had horrible experiences with the evil people that claimed to be counselors. And there's no place for that. Those people, those so-called counselors, should be locked up for what they did, for the abuse that they did to these kids. When you read the definition that was just read, you look at that, it has nothing to do with that. This is solely about getting at the heart of the gospel. They want to remove our tool, the only thing that gets to the heart of an individual and makes a difference is the truth. And I believe that's the whole point of this. They want to remove the tool, the weapon that we have, the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, from being able to use that to help people. Because the only thing, according to this, that you can do is affirm.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and notice like part of the argument in the underlying argument that is in this executive order is if you try to do conversion therapy on our kids, it hurts them. Suicide goes up, or they could die. It's like the trans argument. If you don't let your kids trans, they'll commit suicide. I mean, we've seen that. Remember that ABC Puff piece or that back in Southern California.
Yeah.
Where
a trans child or a dead child.
That's exactly right. And so that's the same argument that's happening. Josh, I can't. Well, actually, Tim. Let's bring Tim Tysoe in.
Look
because
at Tim thought he left Canada.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
You thought you left it.
Tim, what's the you're now in Kentucky. Is it like deja vu? I mean, like, what's this like? Is it creepy now to you? Like, what's happening?
I got home yesterday after I was in the middle of a work day. I was mudding a bathroom that we're finishing for some friends, beautiful little renovation. And I got a text from Pastor Mike Thiessen.
Yeah.
And he was in Nashville at the time. And I literally dropped my tools and I got in my I put on a collar shirt and I drove over there with Pastor Jerry Doris. And when I got home, I was just overwhelmed with emotion. Tears came to my eyes because it literally flooded back that we're having this fight. And you're right to think Kentucky's conservative. It is vastly conservative in its popular culture. That doesn't necessarily mean Christian, but it is certainly, you're at home as a conservative. And to have this fight just parachuted down on you out of nowhere, as Josh just let us know, nobody knew about this until the last minute. It was overwhelming. And it did bring me back to this battle that we fought 3 years ago in Canada. The hope that I have, and the reason why people ask me, well, isn't it just as bad in the States and it's going the same way? The thing is, in Canada, we had no opposition to this act. In fact, this act was passed by the opposition party whose job it is to actually crush and question and slow down the governing party's policies. It was our conservative government that actually pushed it through unanimously. So at least there's a fight here. We've got representatives like Josh Calloway and others. We've got lawsuits that are ready to begin. There were other pastors there speaking out against this. And the media coverage that we got yesterday, I had to applaud. What was fair. And it even cast our position in a positive light on the evening news here in Lexington. So there's a lot of good that we're seeing in the midst of the fight, but this is such a typical leftist tactic where they make the bold move and then they put you on the defense. They dare you to oppose it. They dare you to fight it. So the onus actually falls back to conservatives to actually gain back ground, which we have proven not very good at in the last 30, 50 years.
Yeah.
So we have to be ready and understand that they've put the fight to us and we need to respond appropriately and in a prepared way and with strategy, both legal, spiritual, and cultural. So that's our aim, is to really unify legislators, community people, pastors, families. We need to have a voice that is active on this issue, which is why we had to be there and we couldn't be silent.
That's an interesting point, Tim. How the Democratic governor knows how to put conservative legislators on their heels and defense.
Yep.
And he did it, with the stroke of a pen.
Out of session.
What could a conservative governor do to put liberals on their heels in Kentucky? Could he use the stroke of a pen and say, hey, no public resources go to abortion? What, Josh, this is specifically for you because you're a legislator right now. Like, what could a conservative, like, what's a conservative play where it's strategic and you're putting, the liberals on their heels in Kentucky?
Well, there's a couple things. One thing to understand about the dynamics of Kentucky, we are a supermajority, but we do have an establishment here as well.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that a true conservative governor could help us with is that leadership from the top. Because right now you have House and Senate leadership are in control of everything here when it comes to any type of legislation. So we've had every year since 2017, this bill to ban conversion therapy has been filed, and we pushed it back. But we've had bills that dealt with gender transition, bills that dealt with pornography in schools. And it was a push and an all-out war to get some of those bills across the finish line, which you wouldn't think, but that is the way that it is here in Kentucky. And so I think what a conservative governor could do is actually give us leadership from the top. And that's currently what we don't have.
I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, okay, you said this is his last stint, right? So he's done. When is he out?
And it'll be in 27.
Yeah. Okay. So 2026 is last year.
So this is a bold move. He has to know that this doesn't have any legal standing, right?
Yes. I think it could be election related because he's playing really heavy in some of the Jefferson County and Fayette County races where there are Republicans that hold some of those purplish districts. And so he's probably thinking that he's energizing the base there. He's throwing a lot of money at them. We have the teachers unions that are throwing a lot of money at some of the Republicans. So I think that could be part of what he is doing. But this is the thing. He signed an executive order back a while ago in regard to medical marijuana. And there was a lot of different thoughts about that here in the state of Kentucky. This time, he specified youth.
Yeah.
This is an all-out war, not just on the Constitution, not just on the Commonwealth, but on our children. And that's why I say it's so egregious. That's why it has burdened me beyond measure, because this is our youth. They want the minds of our children confused.
Can I just jump in there, Gabe?
Yeah,
because I love what Josh just brought up there, that this is a bill targeting minors. And it is shocking, and it's almost unbelievable when you read that paragraph, Gabe, that you mentioned. I think Josh alluded to that. You can counsel minors on sexuality, which is creepy enough. But we understand that families have different situations, and children do face unfortunate encounters with sinful people who harm them. And there are sometimes some reparative sessions that may be needed to help a child understand and contextualize what's happened. We don't deny any of that. But the fact that the state allows counseling on sexual desire or temptation, but it is only allowed if you take the one position that the state happens to hold.
Yes.
This is what is so horrifying about this, is that they're not saying we're shutting down state counselors or we're moving all of our public money somewhere else. They are threatening with credentials to literally discredit you, which, Gabe, as you pointed out, they are an infringement on liberty. But by the same token, this is our culture. We live by these things. We live by whether or not schools are credentialed or doctors are credentialed or trained, and everybody hangs their diploma. I mean, where are you going to find work if you are a counselor or some other type of professional who does not hold to that? And so when we went to the signing yesterday, as he was signing the document, we were shouting out that they were silencing the medical community, because the medical community no longer is allowed to weigh in or to offer suggestions for these sexual difficulties, trials, temptations, whatever they want to couch them as. They're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to use their medical insight or their medical wisdom or their biblical worldview, if they happen to be Christians, or just not hold to the LGBTQ narrative. they are now silenced. They're not allowed to participate in the medical field on an equal footing with radicals who, by the way, we're talking about targeting children. And yes, as Josh pointed out, people are harmed by bad experiences, but we already have laws prohibiting abusive behavior.
Correct.
We already have laws that take care of the things that these people went through. The bill does not target criminal behavior. It targets a biblical worldview.
Yes.
And this is why people say, well, this doesn't affect pastors. This doesn't affect parents. But the cat is already out of the bag, because right now it is only centered on so-called scientific medical community. But what they've done is they've attacked a worldview, not a specific practice, which means, and by the way, they left yesterday knowing that there are still people free to oppose them. So they'll go home and they'll start working on the next bill, or they'll start working on expanding this, because now they'll say, well, pastors have a lot of influence in a minor's life.
Yep.
So now we need to silence them. What about parents? There is no depth that they will not reach to silence the biblical worldview, because it's the only way these people feel free to live in this delusion or rebellion, or however they're seeing it. You have to silence every form of biblical witness.
That's so good, Tim. This is the kind of immigration I like. You know what I'm saying?
Tim, you're welcome.
Reinforcements. Come on.
Is abortion still legal in Kentucky?
So right now, no abortions are being performed in the state of Kentucky, and the only exception is for the life of the mother.
So, but it is, as far as the law is concerned, it is illegal then?
It is, correct.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so then, it's really, Tim, you brought this up, but the fact that this is only leaning one particular way, I was just thinking about, we are having the argument inside of Christendom of whether or not we want to enforce, the first table of the law in a society, or how it even applies to society. But this governor has no problem taking the authority of his standard and immediately directly applying it right down the middle to, hey, we're trying to protect kids here. And it's not a if we will, it's which one will we do? And he's clearly fighting for the wicked one.
Well, and what's horrendous about how this governor communicates his stance, and I stood 4 feet from him as he took questions from the media, and one of his final statements was that all children are God's children.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
Right, so he positions himself as a God-fearing man. He speaks in a way that would indicate to, let's say, lukewarm or shallow Christians who don't really have a worldview at all. They may consider themselves Christians in the Lexington area, Fayette County or Louisville, and they say, hey, there's a God-fearing man. And, I understand that, there could be some harms that this bill is going to curtail. And why wouldn't we be for that? But the problem is the entire presentation is dishonest. It is one-sided. It is outright false the way they project statistics in that. And I said to the media after, I didn't see any of the people up here giving their testimony on being survivors of LGBTQ identity. Yeah. I didn't see any survivors of transgenderism who have changed their minds and who have tried to recover their old biological lives, and they've had a terrible, awful time doing it. We didn't hear from any of those people because we're not interested in protecting them, because the aggressive special interest group right now is the LGBTQ community. And Bashir is saying, I want a legacy with these people because they seem to be pushing the culture. They seem to be driving the culture. So they're the ones that I want to have fighting for me and rallying for me and being active for me because they're effective. And so what would a politician do? I don't know if Andy really believes this stuff. He doesn't come across as a very convictional, sincere person. I think he's as Josh said, he's soft and he wants to be popular. And I think he coined the term Team Kentucky to try to bring people together around really 100%. Stupid ideas.
Yeah, 100%.
No, that's exactly right. And I believe he's also looking at national aspirations. He was there was a lot of talk about him in regard to the VP
100%
pick. So, but back to the point that was just being made about the people that spoke. As soon as it was over, there was a lady there that spoke. Her name is Brenda Rosen, and she is the director of National Association of Social Workers for Kentucky. So she comes back to me and she says, "This is a great thing, isn't it?" And she knew who I was when she said it. And I said, "How are you, ma'am?" That was my response. And immediately she lit in and said, what do you have against protecting these beautiful children of God? And I said, "You're right on the last part. They are the beautiful children of God." I said, "But we have to speak the truth. We have to have the ability to speak the truth." And she said, "Well, my God and my faith." I said, "Stop right there." I said, "I'm talking about the God of the Bible and Bible faith. Yeah. People that accept that and that embrace that are right. People that don't are wrong. So that puts you and me both wrong if we're not aligned with that." And a reporter said, "Can I speak in for just a minute?" She said, "Please do," and walked off.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
I don't know what to. I'm reading the ad here in a minute. But
go ahead. Yeah, I have more questions.
Yeah, let me read the ad and you get back into it with your question here. We're going to be feasting on God's word, laughing with friends, and fighting with joy on Reformation Weekend at the Fight Laugh Feast Conference, Prodigal America Conference. What a better way to ring in 2024 presidential election. It's just days before the election. Join us October 31st through November 2nd. Get your tickets at prodigalamerica.com. That's prodigalamerica.com. America has strayed far from God the Father, and here we are in Kentucky. Here we are in 23 states. Here we are fixing to head into one of the most craziest, insane. We're already there. We got, President Trump, 2 assassination attempts in 65 days.
And supposedly 5 different assassination groups that are trying to take him out.
Right. So join us in the fight to bring Prodigal America to repentance at the Fight Laugh Feast Conference on October 31st and November 2nd in Fort Worth, Texas. As always, we'll have good food, good beer, and even better fellowship. Go get your tickets at prodigalamerica.com.
Guys, I'm wondering, I probably should have read this a little more, but what are the penalties supposedly that go with this with an executive order, right? Like, so if, let's say, for instance, that there happens to be a church that is bold enough this coming Sunday to call the governor to repentance and everybody else who denies the reality and the nature that God has made them in, and they decide to preach out on this, what kind of penalties would they be potentially looking at?
Well, my pastor actually already did that last night.
Way to go, Pastor.
He jumped ahead of it and went ahead and called him out and called him how wicked he was. But this specifically is dealing with counselors and the medical field, social workers, and it's dealing with licensure. So there's the tattletale aspect of it, and then the ability for these licensure boards to remove license and put pressure on people to comply. The problem we're going to see out of this also is the administrative regs that come down with this, because I believe that they're going to try to push through as much teeth because it's broad and it's open, vague. I think we will see some administrative regs that will come as well. You may have some other thought on that.
I just want to point out that as far as the bill goes, Josh is right. It exempts pastors
for now.
So listen. So do you know who's going to read that? If they bother to at all and go, "Oh, we're okay." Pastors.
Yeah, that's right. This doesn't affect me. This doesn't affect me.
Tim, I'm going to let you finish. Hold up. I'm going to let you sound like Kanye. I'm going to let you finish. I just want to say, this is my point earlier, though, about when they came for conversion therapy, we said, well, it's not us.
Yeah.
Let's let it go. Not seeing the play that was being made there. And I think you're making the same statement about pastors and versus the licensed counselors.
Yeah. So the spirit of the age, that's at work behind this understands how spiritual warfare is conducted. And by the way, it happens in the real world. We're not just talking about spooky feelings. We're talking about legislation that crushes and silences the biblical witness. So we're talking about spiritual warfare that takes place in the political realm, that takes place in the artistic realm. So Christians who want to say, pastors want to say, well, these are cultural issues and I just preach the gospel. This legislation is designed to make you pastors feel at ease and feel at home this Sunday, that you're not under attack, that your First Amendment, your Bill of Rights is still intact, because it's only targeting a certain group of people. And this was my contention during COVID lockdowns, when a bunch of pastors said, well, we can still do church over Zoom. And I thought, how many pastors have small business owners in their congregation? How many pastors have businesses that rely on in-person interactions? How many pastors have elderly folk who are no longer receiving visits from their children or grandchildren anymore and are dying of loneliness? How many of those people are in the pews or no longer that are suffering and wilting away while the pastor says, well, I'm still good. My freedoms are still intact. That's exactly what this bill is designed to do. It's to put pastors back to bed. If they were at all roused by this, they're going to go back to sleep, and they're going to continue eroding the culture that Christianity has built here in America, unless pastors understand the trajectory of where these ideas go. And it's right. I mean, you got to look 4 hours north to Canada, because it is not limited to medical professionals in Canada, although technically it sort of is. But as Josh said, it's broad enough to capture anybody they want to go after. And it is not just licensing or credentials. It's 5 years in prison and $10,000 maximum fine. We are talking about they mean what they say. And if they believe this harms children, they will put you behind bars to protect them.
Josh,
and
go ahead.
I was just going to say, there are multiple pastors in the state of Kentucky that are licensed counselors.
I was going to ask
and there's two types. So there are different types of counselors, and we also have a pastoral counseling licensure board in the state of Kentucky, and I think there's 26 or so pastors that are licensed specifically with them. So their tool, if they use their faith to guide their counseling, it has been removed by this. And I think Andy Trudeau knew what he was doing. So
yeah, absolutely. I keep
well said.
This is making me think about
Andy Trudeau. That's the governor, and I just got it. I just got it. I'm sorry.
Beautiful 2D chess. Well, inside joke, guys. You don't have to know about that one. I was just thinking about this. Have we thought? Well, I was thinking, what does the states need to make sure they control or have some sort of authority over the licensing process of a counselor? Because that's directly connected to the state's office to be able to control licensing. Do we need to rethink about how we're doing and what we're giving the authority to as it relates to who the state gets to hire, fire, or remove licenses from?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna give just a quick philosophical answer, and Josh probably has a realistic answer. But we in the West have been feeding the beast for decades, where we trust the government to do it. No one has given any warning, and a lot of this has been that Christians have not stepped in to build structures around medicine and the arts and the culture, where the culture has come to rely on Christian innovation. So a lot of this has been handed to the state, and the state is getting fatter and bigger and meaner and more beastly. And so why not? Right? Why not have them do it? And it's really tough to claw these things back. But I know Josh probably has more insight on that than what I've just said.
No, I was just going to make the point that it is absolutely a problem. There's a couple of us are going to introduce a bill this session, provided I make it through my election November the 5th, that will be similar to what's been filed on a national level. That's called the REINS Act. We have to put something in place that doesn't allow administrative regulations to become law without the people's representative actually voting on it and making it law. And we could address a lot of this if that mechanism was in there. But as of right now, the administrative regulations, that's what got us kicked out of the Warren County Juvenile Detention Center. It wasn't a law that was passed. It was executive branch pushing administrative reg out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Josh, I've been very cautious about how people have been using power. And because I think that rightly so, when you have a position of authority, you want to use what you have underneath your authority for good. And a lot of that is power to do things. Yet at the same time, it seems like conservatives and particularly Christians seem to be very afraid of using. I mean, I've seen this so many times through history with the liberal institution, or should I say conservative institutions that have liberals in them. The conservatives are running very, very gingerly through their institution, not willing to say, nope, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. We're going to set that up so this never happens. And so liberals come in and then they do what it is they want to do without any sort of, how did Kamala, where's her votes at? She didn't get any votes. She just put her up there. She'll win.
Yeah.
It seems like we don't know how to actually use power to protect people for good. So I'm wondering what is right now, if other states are watching what Kentucky's going through and they're like, man, we seem semi-conservative. We're not doing this. What should they be thinking about as legislators that they need to put in place right now to make sure this doesn't happen, especially after COVID with emergency powers? People thought they can own the world with emergency powers.
They have to vote in legislators who sleep every night well, not worrying about whether or not they get reelected.
That's right.
That is the ultimate problem. So if you go back in our 2023 session, we were trying to deal with parental rights and push a bill through that would be able to outline parental rights much better than it is today in the state of Kentucky. It's really very open and broad, and the state has way too much power. So we're trying to do that and deal with pornography in the school at the same time. And we couldn't get it to move. We couldn't get the leadership to move these bills.
2/3 majority.
So I stand up one night on the House floor. I filed 7 amendments to the Senate President's priority bill, Senate Bill 5. And I start calling amendments, and I start talking about why we have to do this, our children, and how they are worth every risk that we could take. It doesn't matter if I come back and get reelected. It doesn't matter if I get removed from something. We have to protect our children. So we forced votes, and 6 of us got kicked off of our committees for that night when we left out of session because we voted to challenge the speaker's call. And we have to have people that are not afraid to not get reelected. And that is the answer to it. I will tell you, the majority of legislators at the D.C. level and even at the state level, their number one goal, their number one job they work toward is getting reelected.
This question has bothered me, and I've asked it to all sorts of Christian conservative legislators and Republicans and, kind of on the conservative side. I've never gotten a good answer. And largely, I don't know what the answer is. I think partly myself. But how come in Texas, Colorado, there's been multiple examples over the years where there was a staunchly conservative, city or state like Colorado was, where the liberals came in and took it over. But I can't think of one city or state where the liberals had and the conservatives came and took it over. Josh, do you have any thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I do. It's because we don't want to live around those type of people and the environment that they produce. So when they come in, we get out.
But how do we my question is more like, how are we losing a conservative city like Dallas, Texas, or a conservative state like Colorado? How do we lose that? How do liberals know how to take it over, and we don't know how to take over a liberal state or a liberal city?
It's the backbone issue.
Courage.
It's ultimately the courage issue. People, if we have in the House of Representatives, we have, I think, 7 preachers that are self-proclaimed preachers. 7. We should be burning the Capitol down for the Lord, spiritually speaking. We have a prayer group of about 25 or 26 people that meet twice a week to pray together. But when it comes down to forcing a vote on true principle, you'll have 7 or 8.
One thing I've heard from legislators, and Josh, I don't know if you can speak to this or not, or if you've experienced this, but pastors will often ask for things from their legislators, from their representatives, and then the legislator steps out to do something, takes a risk, forces a vote, shows up at a press conference to cause or to voice opposition. And when the media storm kicks up, the pastors run for the hills In Kentucky, that's literal. But, they scurry back into the shadows. They don't want to take the pressure because being a pastor in America has been such a rewarding. Now, I know there's challenges and hardships and pastors face them, but I'm talking about real scrutiny from the enemy, not squabbles within families that are, interpersonal. I'm talking about real public warfare where your reputation takes a hit or you stand up to defend somebody that nobody else is. And pastors, unfortunately, have become known for standing in the shadows and essentially being cowards when the battle actually takes place. And they hide behind slogans like "I'm not political," and they're a little bit political because they'll go vote and they'll hope for an election result, and they might even support Josh Calloway and they might even go to a prayer meeting. But again, who's willing to go and do that thing? We know that famous verse, faith without works is dead. And somehow we've exempted our civic action and our political action from our list of good works, just as much as we would, be kind to the poor and help those in need and the vulnerable, right? Like, what are good works if they are not captured by the whole and the totality of our lives?
No, I don't like that. I don't like that.
You're exactly.
All of Christ for all life.
No, that's what I'm saying. I was thinking about this, and there's always a time. I was reading. I'm going to boast on myself a little bit, doing some family worship, honoring God.
Stretch it out.
And we were going through 1 Samuel. We've been going through Samuel, and one of the things that was really obvious is like when you have bad priests, the nation suffers loss in wars and battles, and they don't win them. And
you got bad pastors.
And you got exactly. So
right.
and
your city
they're
suffers.
not doing their job. And then when we get into wars or battles, the priests will get high, right? It's like, oh my goodness, this is really important. But when God has left the people, they want to go and act like they can rub God like a genie and get him to do things for them.
Then the machine, Jesus.
And then they come out with the ark and like, we're surely going to win this battle, but they haven't obeyed the God that they say that they love. And when you say stuff like, well, I'm a Christian, I preach the gospel, I'm not being political. I'm trying to figure out how in the world did you not read the 10 Commandments? How in the world have you not understood what the gospel does? The gospel of Jesus Christ is directly tied to his law. That's what we're being forgiven of breaking his law. Right. And so then it restores us back to the reality of nature of honoring God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loving our neighbor as ourselves, honoring our parents, obeying them, not stealing from each other, not coveting each other. I don't know what kind of gospel these guys are preaching, because when they see it happening, that the government is stealing, the government is lying, the government is not letting people honor their neighbor, they're not letting you tell the truth to your neighbor. What kind of gospel are you preaching?
They know what the left has a vision that unifies their movement. They have a vision for a unified culture around their cause.
Yep.
And I don't think conservatives do. I think conservatives have largely an individualistic vision for their own lives, for their own liberties. And so even if you had 2 weeks to assemble pastors in that rotunda yesterday at the Frankfurt Capitol, how many would you get in there? I mean, this was not they were empty chairs. The left was in the majority there, but they might have had 50 people in the room who supported them. Tell me we couldn't get 60 pastors, 70 pastors
seriously
in there, right?
Seriously.
I mean, that is a small number. I mean, there's that many pastors probably in my town in Kentucky. It is not hard to find a pastor in this state. The problem is, can you find a pastor who's willing to get in his car, take a morning, and go voice and stand for the righteousness of God when people are giving an affront to it? And they're not just doing it in the name of secularism. Andy Bashir invoked the name of God for this legislation. I mean, he is literally blaspheming God and his creation while he signs these things. And pastors can't be bothered to stand up and oppose it. And I find that troubling. And it's one of the reasons why, I appreciate the partnership that we're starting to see between legislators and pastors, where there's one fellow running in my town and he hasn't won yet, but he's polling really well. And he doesn't understand these issues entirely deeply yet, but he's sitting down with pastors to learn them. So there's a partnership that's required too, where we are commanded to instruct the nations and disciple the nations.
That's right.
And that's one of the key ways that we do it, is we are public teachers and instructors on the law of God, especially for those who are responsible for enacting the laws of the land.
That's right. Amen.
That's right. And one of the people that spoke yesterday actually made the statement that these children are hearing from their pastors and teachers that they don't belong. They invoke God through the whole thing, and
Yeah.
And what he's saying is absolutely correct. Most pastors are not willing to speak up and speak out on these issues because of several reasons. Sometimes it's even in their own churches of people that are in sin. They refuse to deal with it. The Sunday after I got kicked off my committees and 4 other house members did, we came into church that following Sunday morning, and my pastor started preaching his message, and he literally went right to it and said, here's the 5 house leadership members, and they removed these members from their committee. Wow. And the only reason I could think of why they would do that is because lobbyists are either in their billfold or in their bed. I can't think of any other reason why. But it gave me it put a confidence in me to
keep up the fight.
Don't back down.
Yeah.
Don't stop fighting. And I literally there is a godly fear, but there is no fear in me to compromise because 1, I know I have the support, and 2, I know my church is going to hold me accountable.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes a pastor, all he can be is an armor bearer, which is to say it's to hold up the weapons of our,
that's good.
Our congregants. A pastor can't be in there writing laws all the time, right? He can't be there in the classroom necessarily, depending on the situation. He can't be in all of those areas. But what he does do is exactly what Josh just described, which is if you go into the fight, I'll be right behind you with your shield. If you go into that fight, I'll be right behind you. I am as much in this fight as you, but you're the one wielding the sword and wielding the tools. But I'm going to be here. And listen to how Josh just spoke. I mean, imagine if every Christian conservative legislature just went in there saying, my whole church backs me up. My whole church is holding me accountable. I got no fear. The harder I push into God's righteousness, the more smiles I get on Sundays. People are not afraid of the bad press. Amen. They're not afraid of the bad, ugly names they're going to call us. They're not afraid of all that. They get more excited. That stems from the pulpit, the authority of God's word, and pastors saying, we are in this for the kingdom of God together. And that armor bearer image is something that pastors, I think, need to really take up and take seriously, because otherwise we're just sending people out kind of to the slaughter on their own. And we're just saying, go be a good witness at work, whatever that means. It's never specific, and it's never very confrontational, because they don't want bad press coming back to them, because church is pretty good, right?
Man.
So I just love that example from Josh and what he's feeling because of his good pastor. And there are good pastors out there. And I don't want to just speak negatively, because there are those men.
Two cheers for Josh's pastor, for sure.
Absolutely. If you aren't listening to Liberty Dispatch on the Fight Laugh Feast Network, you got to tune into Tim Tyson, those guys. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. Josh, thank you for coming on. I want to say, go ahead.
If somebody's listening, they're out in Kentucky, how do they reach out to you, Josh?
That's right.
How can they support you? How can they get their pastor on board with what you're doing? And just figure out what the plan is, because it sounds like you guys have one, but let's make sure that you guys get connected with other people that are listening. Also, Tim, you as well. Josh, you go first. How can people reach out and find you?
Yes, sir. I have a website, joshcallawayky.com. They can also go to the Kentucky LRC website. My email's on there. There's a phone number that they can reach out to me as well. And if there's a few of you all that have my cell phone number, that's somebody that you're connected to, that you want to connect to me, feel free to share that.
Yeah, they can reach out to us with your permission, Josh. If people reach out to me, I'll give them your email address.
I'm sorry, just one last. I'm just thinking about this. The idea of conversion still is just, notice how they're owning the center on this. God made them one way, and then they go and lie to them to get them to try and convert into the reality they want them to be. And then they turn around and say, we're the ones converting. Like, what? No, God designed them this way. That's their actual nature. This should be called the reconversion bill, if anything, right?
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, this is insane how they're trying to own the center on what the nature of the individual is.
That's exactly right.
They don't get to make that claim. Oh,
exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same thing with the legal and legislative battles where they put conservatives on their back feet. So now we're the ones that have to argue. Oh no.
Yes.
Conversion therapy is not a bad thing. Now maybe whatever methods of conversion therapy they're specifically talking about might be bad, but it's the language that holds the narrative in place, and that is that when we come along, we're trying to convert people to accept their bodies, to accept God's good creation, to be at peace with their body. And sometimes that's a process. It's not easy for everybody. There are struggles out there, but we are preaching and teaching and encouraging peace with the body, to love your body, to appreciate it as a good creation from God, and to live according to its design. That's not conversion.
That's right.
I mean, maybe it's conversion to Christ, right? But we are not deviating them. But the language is completely upside down, and that's where public teachers are so important. Guys, I want to share Savannah Maddox is one of the people I've been in touch with here in Frankfurt. She can be reached at, I'm just going to pull it up here because she has been very active since this took place. She is in the Capitol Annex building, so she's got an office. She's savannah.maddox at lrc.ky.gov. So savannah.maddox with 2 D's at lrc.ky.gov. And she is going to be leading one of the movements that are going to take place from now till the legislature opens. The whole idea here is to be ready for the legislative session, not to be organizing when that starts. So get in touch with Savannah. She's been very supportive and she's very active and she speaks very boldly. So we appreciate having her among many others. And of course, we hope that we're going to add new legislators this fall for the winter session come November. So we've got some great folks from Central Kentucky running, and we hope and pray that God is pleased to bring them into office and that we can continue to do the work of righteousness in every sphere. So it's been a pleasure and a privilege, guys. I always appreciate you having me on.
Thank you guys so much for coming.
I will back up to as well what he said about Savannah. We also have TJ Roberts, who's an attorney who is on the ballot in November. He won his primary. He is a constitutional attorney. And there is a presser in the morning at 9 a.m. in the rotunda of the Capitol. The Commonwealth Policy Center, myself, TJ, some citizens will be there, as well as the Family Foundation. Any pastor that may see this or that you guys could reach out to, we'd love to have them there at 9 a.m.
You guys send us what you're sharing
whatever
on
we
social
need.
media.
We'll email it out
and what you're pushing,
like
and we'll get it out on our social medias as well, so that we can have you guys' back all the way from here in Idaho.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank y'all.
Absolutely.
I just want to say, closing out, before you close out,
that
liberals are liars. But when they say that our pastors aren't making our children feel wanted, there's something truth about that. There's something true about that. And this is a Baptist Presbyterian divide. For 15 years, a Baptist pastor tells that kid, you aren't a Christian until you're baptized. For 15 years, you preach and tell your congregation that your kids aren't Christians until they're baptized. They're growing up in a Christian family. They're worshiping with you and all that. They're exhibiting fruit of the Spirit. But you say for 15 years that you aren't wanted until you're baptized. There's some hard theology that Baptists, I think, need to think about right there. And our Presbyterian pastors aren't much better. They tell their kids for 15 years, 12 years, whatever it is, that you can't take the Lord's Supper until you come to our little elder meeting and we say that, okay, we think you're thinking correctly. We think that you're being logical about what it means to be a Christian, whatever test the elder body gives for that kid who's growing up in a Christian family to take the Lord's Supper. Like we teach the kids, you aren't part of the body of Christ until you come into our elder office and you come to our little executive board meeting and we interview you, and then you can come to the Lord's Supper after we say it's okay. We're teaching our kids, we're sending our kids some wrong messages on what it means to be growing up in a Christian family. I'm not talking about automatic salvation. I'm not talking about, just because you're born in the Christian family, are you automatically a Christian? But I'm talking about what it means to grow up in the covenant body of Christ, into a Christian family. And so we have taught our kids that you are not wanted until we think it's time. That you aren't part of the body of Christ. I know there's probably all sorts of questions popping up right now, and I'm glad we need to do a full show on this, Knox.
We've never talked about it before. And if that wasn't enough, women shouldn't vote. Okay, I thought I just since we're doing it all, I thought we'd get it all out there.
Yeah. But I think that there is a point that's being made there.
I will say
that
this.
we need to answer that question in the church.
I think this is. I know that some of this is baby steps to understand, but I think the simplest thing to understand is stop giving your kids to government schools. I wish make
them part of the family. Make them feel part of the family.
I wish my Presbyterian brothers and I wish my Southern Baptist Convention brothers would stop sending their kids to government schools and care about their kids the way that the governor of Kentucky says he cares about your kids. That's what I wish.
We can agree on that.
And if we can get that, then we can talk about the rest of it.
Yeah.
But can we just get you to stop letting your kids be educated by somebody that tells them that they need to be converted to whatever they feel like instead of the way that God made them? I mean, if we take over the world, if we can just get the re-education of our kids back to biblical standards, not letting them the world educate them and wondering why they're turning out like the world. That'd be a great place to start, is taking control of our kids' education. All right, hit my music.
All right.
Constitutional Amendment 2.
If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politics. It feels so weird being over here.
No,
I don't like
it really does.
Side of the chair.
It's opposite day.
Wanted. Young men to rebuild Western civilization. Must be unafraid of pain, blisters, intellectual rigor, and a lifetime of long shifts with swords and shovels, digging ditches, repelling invaders, and reading stacks of books taller than their fathers. Must be impervious to manipulative women of all sorts, giggling virgins, cyber skanks, and even full cauldrons of Karens or hand-wringing clergy, but always seeking to hear and heed the words of Lady Wisdom. Immune to the leadership of hypocrites and LARPing online masculinitods, unaffected by abusive authorities, petty professors, and all brokers of official respectability. Willing to hoist the Jolly Roger and Johnny Cash's favorite finger whenever faced with idolatry. Long-suffering joy and determination required. Must be willing to dwell among the tombs and graves of the long dead, seeking truths that cannot die. Exhaustion guaranteed. Conflict guaranteed. Mortality guaranteed. New St. Andrews College. Liberal arts for the undaunted.